Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is August 25th, 2026. It's about 10:27 a.m. Eastern, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth utilizing some measurements and diagrams about the development potential at the property 425 Ashe, A-S-H-E, Cabin Hollow Road in Harriman, Tennessee. And really quickly, I'm going to give you a preview of this property's listing so that you can find it. So you might want to go browse that in detail, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that part today. I'm just going to show you how to find it, and then I'm going to focus on these measurements. So let's jump into it. So no matter who you are, whether you're an agent or you're not an agent, if you want to find this property, you can simply just type this address in here on Realtor.com, and then you're going to hit the red search button to the right. And then you're going to bring up the photo gallery, and there's 59 images currently in this photo gallery. I'm going to click through them really quickly. A lot of it shows you the property as is, and then shows you a vision for what the seller had envisioned if he had completed the renovation project. Roughly $100,000 of improvements have been done, but the finished image is displayed in some of these. Anywhere a finished image is generated, it will say imagine the possibilities, and then right before it, it will say as is. So it's very clear. Images that don't have a label, those are as is. That's the current state of that part of the property listing. So as you can see, this listing is extremely detailed. Tells you a lot about the property's attributes, the region, the town, the county, the part of the state, the waterways, all kinds of things. So you've got that at a glance there, and we're going to go back and do some measurements and talk about some development potential. Okay, so we're back on this screen here, and again, here's my cell number if you would like to reach out to me for any type of real estate need: listing, buying, selling, advertising, consulting, asset management, whatever it may be. Okay, so what we are looking at here is a property line diagram. And you can see there's measurements in white indicated over the major sections of boundary lines. So in the front section of the property, where there's 85 feet of road frontage, there's a gravel drive that begins and comes up this way. Now you'll see these dashed yellow lines. I want you to ignore those. Typically what dashed yellow lines indicate in this system is that sometime in the past there was an alternate proposed survey that was considered or that was in place, but at some point those lines were abandoned, and what is current and active today are the dark solid yellow and solid white lines. So hopefully my screen capture software is showing you the little hand where I'm hovering over the roof of the primary residence that's currently there. That's roughly a 2,088 square foot home with a main level and a basement level, a front porch and a back porch deck styles. You can kind of see a rectangular object right here, but there's nothing there. There's no structure there. There's a row of bushes there. I think something was parked maybe next to that row of bushes when this particular satellite image was previously captured. You might also notice a rectangular roof-like shape here. That is the top of the 3-bay carport, which also on the right-hand side has a fourth section that's a fenced-in locking area for what looks like you could maybe have some animals there, or you could also just park like bikes and things in there that you want to keep secure. So what we're going to look at are some potential measurements and design possibilities for developing out the property. Zoning has confirmed in writing that this property is zoned such that you are able to attempt and explore the potential of developing up to 2 homes per acre. And what I put here is a total of 14 homes, but what I actually meant to put was a total of 15 homes. Because if you have 7.75 acres and you have 2 homes per acre, then the 7 acres could produce potentially the attempt of 14 home sites, and that last 0.75 acre should allow you at least 1 more home site. So it would actually be a total of 15. You're allowed, according to zoning, to attempt single wides, double wides, modular, traditional construction, pretty much anything, any type of construction, as long as it permits. And then you're also allowed to have per parcel, if I understand correctly, one RV that is lived in year-round. There's a permitting process for that. Don't go buy an RV. Excuse me, touch of allergies. Don't go buy an RV without talking to Roane County first about getting an email from them that has the complete and total list of what is required. Because wouldn't it be horrible if you bought an RV that was not going to meet the Roane County criteria, okay? So make sure you talk to them. It can't just be any RV, okay? Another thing I'm curious about, and I haven't really clarified this with zoning, but they encouraged subdividing of the property if you're going to develop it out. So if you were to subdivide it, would you then be allowed to have one RV per parcel on all those subdivided parcels? Maybe, I'm not really sure. You'd have to talk to them about that. I didn't really jump into that part because the day I had my phone meeting with them, I was more focused on homes. How many homes can we put there? So I think the rule says one RV per parcel, but if you subdivided, you might be able to do a whole bunch of RV sites. Again, that is up to the discretion of zoning. You know, do not make an assumption. If you want to make an offer on the property and you want to attempt that use, we need to write up an offer for you that is contingent upon getting that approved in writing from zoning before we close. No point in paying for something that you can't do with it what you need to do with it. And a lot of times, if there's something that you want to do, we can get something in writing before we even write up an offer for you. Okay, so before I get too sidetracked again, we're back on our focus topic today for this video, and that is some measurements and looking at how would you go about placing homes on this property. So I am going to draw a line. Okay, I've drawn this line here that kind of hovers roughly over the driveway. And it is 421.2 feet, this particular line that I drew, okay? So roughly 421 feet from the side of the paved road up the gravel drive to the frontage of the carport, which is situated on the left just after you drive past the house, which will be on your right. So why not continue that driveway running parallel to the northern border of the property? See this beautiful 1,004-foot northern border of the property? Why not continue that all the way to the back property line? So before we continue that, let's take a quick measurement from our border to here. So there's about 90 feet, 80 feet, 75 feet roughly from that border to the edge of the gravel drive at that spot right there. So let's try and not just maintain that space, but maybe make it a little bit wider. So right about here, if I come in about 100 feet, there's about 105 feet right there. So visually you can kind of see what that looks like. So now I'm going to put this right here and this right here. So when we come all the way to the edge of that line there where they meet, it's about 589 additional feet from the end point of the gravel drive to run it parallel to the back line of the property. Okay, and okay, so we've got that line locked in. It's about 589 additional feet. So imagine you put in 589 additional feet of gravel drive. There's a little bit of trees through here that you would need to clear. it's actually less trees than it looks like would need to be cleared. And if you notice, this satellite image is taken kind of at an angle. See how it kind of looks like all the trees are leaning like upwards towards the top of the screen? That's because that point of view is kind of at an angle. So there's actually more space already cleared than what you see. It's creating an illusion because of the angle of the satellite image. So you would be needing to clear trees that are in this general area here. So not a terribly large space. And then I would recommend exploring the idea of building a house every few feet all along this northern border. Typically, in most counties in Tennessee, and if I remember correctly in Roane, a primary structure that's going to be resided in, lived in, or rented in, the side of that structure, any side of that structure, needs to be at least 10 feet from a survey line on the side and the back of the property when it's zoned in the manner that this particular property is zoned. So as long as you have that 10 feet of space, you're good. Now, you might want more space than that from your back line, but what I'm saying is, if you're trying to squeeze in as many structures as you can, because that's your particular vision, then there's a lot of space to work with here. Okay, so making some adjustments to calculations, keeping in mind that line I drew of that 589-foot wide section of extended gravel drive, potentially, okay? If you wanted to put 3 homes just in that section of the property, okay, you would need to have a half acre for each parcel along that northern border in that section, okay? Each parcel would need to be about 196 feet wide. Well, let me rephrase that. About 196.33 feet wide and about 110.93 feet deep. So roughly 197 wide by 111 deep. Okay, and you could fit potentially 3 homes just along that section of the northern border. Okay. If you're a developer and you want me to draw out like an exact survey diagram with all the measurements and the spacing for something you're envisioning, I can absolutely help you with that. Just let me know. Let's go back to that diagram. Okay, so we're back on our diagram. Now take a look again. Here's that 589 feet of width of considering extension of that gravel drive. And again, if along that line, in coordination with this northern border, just this section of northern border, okay, we're ignoring this whole front piece of the property, this whole entry piece of the property where there's already a house, okay? If you were to subdivide this section here along the northern border that's 589 feet wide, and you carved that out, here it is here, roughly 197 foot wide sections by 111 feet deep sections, you would have 3 half-acre parcels where potentially you could explore putting a primary residence on each and every one, okay? So I'm going to type a summary down here as a reference. 1/2, aka 0.5 acre lot equals 197 feet wide by 111 feet deep, okay, which equals home site possible, question mark, because again, everything must have approved permitting and septic systems, etc. Okay. So you could just continue, theoretically, you could just continue to take those parallel lines around the border the rest of the way, okay? You could just continue that. So if you could fit 3 here, you could probably fit 3 more here and maybe 2 or 3 more here. And then you still have this whole core area that could be like grassy area, parking area, front yard space area, or if you build the homes towards the front of each of those lots, then they have nice big backyards, which is personally what I would prefer. Who, you know, who doesn't want to have a backyard? Not to mention, property with a nice backyard is going to hold value better. It's more desirable to more people, of course. Okay, so I've added some more lines to this diagram, and you can see that these lines, they're not like full-length lines. They're not touching each other. So there's a lot of space there that's not being measured and calculated. And you can kind of see where there's wiggle room, like, oh, okay, well, we'd need this section to be wider, so actually we'd move that line, southward a bit. But this just kind of gives you an idea. Currently, there's a house in this parcel here, this parcel below my little hand indicator here, this front parcel, maybe another one could be there. Then 1, 2, 3 in that section we just discussed. And again, these lines are not perfect placement. I already explained and defined what would constitute a half acre. But editing all these lines and moving them around, this software isn't really ideal for that. But I'm just giving you these rough placements so that you can see what might be possible. And then you still have this big middle section that's not utilized. I mean, you could probably put 4 more right there. As long as you have your gravel drive, if it goes along the border of the each parcel, and you write up all your deeds such that you make it a defined shared driveway easement that each property owner has defined, utilization and access to, I would think that would be the cheapest and least expensive and fastest thing to do there. Because if you tried to make it into like a county road or a paved county road, that would be very expensive and a much slower approval process. So you'd want to probably start out with a shared gravel driveway plan that's written into the deeds for each parcel, and then consider, what would the requirements be of the county roads department if in the future you attempted to get it adopted and converted into what the county would consider a new public road. Okay, and so if you were going to do that, you'd just leave room for that future envisioned step. Okay, but honestly, I just don't think that's necessary. But if you buy it, it's your property, it's your vision. Do what makes you happy, right? Do what's in your budget, do what makes sense to you. So let's add a few more lines into that core section there. But again, you could keep that core section. It could be considered part of the subdivision, a nature boundary. I mean, think about it. Think how much privacy could be maintained. You've got all of these wooded areas that encapsulate the property that are nice and vast, and you have these rolling hills, grassy hills, all this beauty that surrounds and beauty that is across the street. It's just nature kind of scenery. If you maintained a nature-like core that was kind of like a wildlife preserve for the community, then you could even put in some picnic tables. You could make this an amenity in the middle here. You could carve out the core. You could have a walking trail that was like an oval shape, and then that had branches that connected to it, and a series of picnic tables, maybe like 1 picnic table per parcel, and not necessarily assigning those picnic tables to anyone, but making it so that there was a place for maybe children to come together and play, or families to come together and have a picnic or something. It's like their own little park in there. You could put some swing sets. That would be really cool. This is a vision I haven't really considered or demonstrated in any of my other videos, but this whole section here could be a park for the residents of this community. So many things you could consider doing with this property. It's just a matter of your budget, your goals, and then the other thing too is, if you're going to do something slow and scalable, I cannot fathom a better way to go about it than to just go along this northern border. Home 1 here, home 2 here, home 3 here, or rather new home 1, new home 2, because there's already a home here. It just needs renovations completed. And again, that home has 3 bedrooms, 2 bath on the main level, open living room floor plan, this massive basement with high ceilings and 2 windows and a garage door and a residential door, a sink. So I would turn, it's got the washer dryer hookups down there as well. So I would turn the northern section of the basement into a bathroom, laundry room, mudroom combo, put up a wall, and then let the rest of that space downstairs be an entertainment space that you could then use as a bedroom space potentially. You can only advertise that down there as an additional 1 or 2 more bedrooms if you get the septic permit upgraded. The current septic permit for that house says 3-bedroom home. So if you were to, have what looked like a big bedroom down there, you could not advertise it as a bedroom in the future if you went to sell the property unless you got the septic permit upgraded. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have questions about that, I can give you a much more detailed explanation. Text me 865-617-4783. This property has public water. This property has a bonus well. This property has public electric. This property has access to multiple true high-speed internet services. I get a phenomenal cell signal when I'm out there. Sorry, I keep clicking on the wrong things and then it pops up information we're not asking for. And then zoom out and you could be to Kingston City Park on the lake putting your boat in like under 5 minutes. You can be at, I'm looking for it here. Where did it go? Here's Kroger and here's Lowe's. You can be there in about 2 minutes. You got Weigel's across the street, a ton of restaurants. Here's Roane County Hospital. I mean, talk about convenience. You could be at public hunting lands over roughly 100 acres right on the waterfront within maybe 7 minutes. That section I displayed is called McLaughlin Largan, by the way. You could come over here to Caney Creek and rent a boat at their marina in about 8 minutes, 7 minutes from where you live. You can be at Roane County State or TCAT higher education facilities within about 9 or 10 minutes from where you live. Here's those facilities. Walmart and the shopping centers that are encapsulated in that area are maybe 12 minutes away, 15 minutes away. The new Rockwood Marina, as well as Tom Fuller Park Public Park on the lake, is maybe, 15, 17 minutes away. Super nice. Here's your general Watts Bar Lake region. And if you head over this way, here's your Paint Rock region. And then if you head over this way, here's Lenoir City and Farragut. You can get to Farragut and Lenoir City in about 25 to 27 minutes, maybe less. And if you look at the way these roads are designed, I love the way these roads are designed. It's like ribbons draping around each section of waterway. So you're basically at this pinnacle point where these 2 major sections of waterway branch downward, heading southeastwardly and southwestwardly. And you're right here at the peak of that diagram, so to speak. So if you want to go to this side of the waterway, you take 70 and 27. You want to take this side of the waterway, you take 58. You want to head down this side, you take 72. Or any number of country back roads or residential back roads. You don't have to stay on those main roads. You want to head this direction, you take 70 as well. you want to get over to Farragut super fast, you take 40. But there's a countless back roads and residential roads you can navigate to go all these different places. Like personally, living in Kingston, if I'm going to head to Lenore City, I don't stay on the main roads. I take back roads the whole way. It's beautiful. I can relax. I don't have to deal with traffic. I can take my time. There's a Dollar General like every 10 minutes. So if you need to stop for any convenience, you can. You know, it's just a really beautiful area. If you're not familiar with Roane, it's such a beautiful area. Taking a look here at many, many, many marinas in the area. Look at all these marinas that you're close to. You know, there's so many beautiful waterways in East Tennessee. When I was growing up in East Tennessee, my family moved here from southern Louisiana when I was around 7. My father went from working in the oil rigs in the Gulf to factories in East Tennessee and in manufacturing and electronics and automotive. And I spent most of my youth around this mountainous Townsend, Tennessee area and the Maryville, Alcoa, and Sevierville area. But I really almost never visited any waterways other than the Little River and Townsend. That was mainly where I went. Occasionally, and I mean maybe a handful of times, I headed down to the Greenback Von Noor area and had found a dock with a couple of friends and sat out and, you know, tanned on the waterway. There's also this area called Tanasi Choda where there's a historic burial ground, and went there a handful of times with some friends. It was very, very beautiful. But it wasn't until I was an adult that I really started exploring all these major waterways in depth, mainly because of my pursuit of a real estate career. I've helped people with property all around Douglas Lake, all around Cherokee Lake. I've done a lot of consulting for people around all these branching waterways with Norris. I've helped people in Loudoun and Monroe and McMinn and Roane and Cumberland and all, you know, Ray and Megs. And honestly, I don't know if it's Megs or Megs or Migs or Ray or Rhea or how people say it. I really don't know. But I do know the property there. And I have listed and sold lots of property in all these regions. The waterways are gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous. I would say this section, or these sections here that you're proximal to if you were to purchase 425 Ashe, are some of the most highly desirable because you can get to lots of jobs, lots of education in the Knox County area, in the Roane County area, and the Anderson County area, and the Loudoun County area. Ray and Meg's, all these marinas. There's so many parks on the water. There's so many boat ramps and docks and water access, tons of public hunting land. I mean, just tons of public hunting land. A lot of it's accessible by car. A lot of it's accessible by boat. You know, we got fishing tournaments constantly. It's just really beautiful. So anyway, I'm going to go back to that diagram. Okay, I started to try and draw those extra diagram lines in, but the system's really not wanting me to do it. But you can see it, you can envision it, you can imagine it. Again, this particular software is not ideal for drawing a whole bunch of lines, because as you go to hover, as you go to move, see just moving over that, it makes all these things pop up. So it makes it really tricky. If I would have done them in a different order, we could have maybe drawn more there, but you can see that, you can envision that. You don't need me to break it down for you there, but there's so many possibilities with how you could go about it. This is just one. I've discussed many others. If you'd like to inquire about this or any other property, just shoot me a text. Again, that's 865-617-4783. Thank you so much for visiting my YouTube channel, and check back next time. Have a great day.